Every time you hire a new coach, it's worth looking into what players may follow him to your team. Well, this got a really interesting trade situation sparked, and I want to get into it. Could the Jets land Courtland Sutton? Jets, Jets! Welcome to Jets Talk. My name's Ryan. I'll be your pilot. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. If you've been here before, welcome back. I love having you here. Boys and girls, I go live every Monday for my live call-in show from 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock. This past week, I had Robbie Sabo from Jets X Factor, so make sure you go back and listen to that. And then Tuesday, we come back with our Talkin' Jets panel, myself, O'Leary, and Greenbean. So ask us all your Jet-related questions. But let's hop into our topic of the day. And this is a hypothetical trade for the Broncos and the Jets. This was brought up by Benjamin Albright, a Broncos beat reporter. So this was not like a Jets beat reporter throwing this into the ether and just saying, hey, the Jets could get this wide receiver in Courtland Sutton. So it's not quite like that. That's why it's maybe a little bit more interesting. Now, there's been trade rumors floating about Courtland Sutton for the last year or so. He's had a little bit of injury problems. He's missed 18 games over the last 3 seasons. He had, I believe it was an ACL 3 years ago? I think it was an ACL in like the first or second game. And he only has $14 million of guaranteed money left on his contract right now. So he's going to need a new contract. Being 27 going into his 28-year-old season, do the Broncos want to pay a ton of money to a possibly injury-prone wide receiver when you have Jerry Jeudy waiting in the wings? Is there a situation where you want to make a move? And maybe this is a chance where you could either regain some capital in draft picks that you gave up for Russell Wilson, or maybe you can get some assets that might at least help you or move forward. Now, the idea here is that the Jets hired former Broncos wide receiver coach Zach Asiani the other day to be their wide receivers coach, and we also have Nathaniel Hackett. So there's just a few connections between the Broncos and the New York Jets here. And the other idea is that Sean Payton really likes Zach Wilson. Now, let's go into the trade. I'll bring it up right here. So basically, Broncos get Zach Wilson, Denzel Mims. Jets would get Courtland Sutton and a 2024 4th-round pick. That's what was proposed. Now, this trade happens or is all contingent on the Jets getting Aaron Rodgers. So if you get Aaron Rodgers, then you say, hey, we're going all in for a 2-year push. Let's go out and get Courtland Sutton. Conceivably, you have Corey Davis, $10.5 million cap savings if you move on from him at the end of this year, or I guess this offseason if you move on from him. So you have $10.5 million in wide receiver money to kind of play with. That's sort of the way I'm looking at that. So if you feel like you can apply that $10.5 million to maybe someone like Courtland Sutton and he provides you a better chance to win, maybe he's a different height profile. I think he's like 6'4", 215 pounds or something like that. So definitely a bigger receiver than we've had. And Denzel Mims was kind of we were hoping he would sort of be that 6'3", really fast guy that could take the top off of a defense. And, maybe a cheaper version of Sutton in Mims is what they would prefer, with the roll of the dice of maybe Zach Wilson potentially working out. Now, the value in Zach Wilson right now, if you were to trade him, is because you have not had to decide on his 5th-year option. So you get an entire season of watching him before deciding on that 5th-year option. So if Sean Payton theoretically really liked what Zach Wilson was coming out of college, and he felt that the Jets' first-time offensive coordinator in Mike LaFleur was unable to utilize Zach the proper way and get the most out of him, then I can see why some people in the NFL might be really high on Zach Wilson. I mean, let's talk about how this guy was the number 2 overall prospect just 2 years ago, and that's not going to change a whole crazy ton. Like, we have seen Zach in the NFL. You've seen 20 whatever games out of him. So there is, a proof of, hey, this guy can't get it done in the NFL. And there is that panic. But I think when you look at the Jets with a defensive-minded head coach, a first-time offensive coordinator, and then you look at Sean Payton and his whole career, clearly if there's going to be a shot that this kid works out, under Sean Payton seems to be a really good thing. Now, what kind of value does that place on Zach Wilson in this sort of hypothetical trade situation? Well, Courtland Sutton, his statistics, he's only had 1,000-yard season. He's sitting somewhere around the 700 to 800 yards per season range. And you saw a trade last year in Chase Claypool that was given up for a 2nd-round pick. It ultimately ended up being the number 32 overall pick because the Dolphins lost their pick in the 1st round. So the first pick in the 2nd round wound up being for the Bears, which was for Chase Claypool. So do I think Courtland Sutton could be traded for a similar trade package. I definitely do. I think a second round pick makes sense for him. Denzel Mims is more of a throw in for me. I think he was kind of on that cusp of like the Jets don't necessarily want to maybe hold on to him. I shouldn't say they don't want to hold on to him. I think they like the prospect that he is and could potentially be with new quarterback play, but they're not necessarily tied to him the way you may feel to some other players on the team. With Zach Wilson, this is where it sort of falls apart for me, because if you're bringing in Aaron Rodgers, it feels a lot like you're trying to groom Zach Wilson. Like, I know there's fans that are like, oh no, I want Derek Carr for the next 4, 5, 6 years because it's a long-term answer. But if you're paying attention and you're saying, okay, 2 years of Aaron Rodgers and then 10 years of Zach Wilson, that's really the long-term benefit of bringing in Rodgers and all this sort of situation. Now, if the Jets actually felt like, hey, Zach is not the guy and they were going to move all in on a Super Bowl these next 2 years, then it would at least provide you the ability to, maybe draft a quarterback in the next year or two and then sit him behind someone like Rodgers. But that still feels weird to me. This doesn't feel like a trade that would actually make any kind of sense. I feel like the Broncos would prefer draft picks because of what they've had to give up for Russell Wilson, as opposed to players that really haven't worked out and might be something on another team. So I understand the value in what Zach Wilson could provide if he does click, but I just don't see this as being a very likely scenario for the Broncos. I think they want the picks more so than the players. Guys, let me know your thoughts on this hypothetical trade down below in the comments section. Would you want Courtland Sutton? Is this the trade that gets it done? Who wins, who loses? Let me know in the comment section down below. And as always, go Jets.